Up next, we have Susana Murabana. Susana Murabana is a co-founder and CEO of the Traveling Telescope, a social enterprise dedicated to promoting astronomy in Africa. Her team brings astronomy education to schools, public spaces, and lodges using portable telescopes and the mobile planetarium. Susana's dedication to quality education and science engagement has earned her numerous accolades and positions on international boards. So, Susana, please welcome.
Good day, everyone. Thank you very much, Caroline, for the very informative presentation and for the introduction. I'd like also to thank the organizers of this meeting for inviting me as a speaker and to say hello to everyone from wherever you're joining. As said, my name is Susana Murabana. I'm joining you from Nairobi in my garage office, where I'm surrounded by telescopes and mobile planetaria and other things, and a green screen. And I'm going to be talking about the traveling telescope. But before I start sharing my slides, I'd like to ask a question. I don't know how you're going to reply, but I just wanted to find out from the audience, and I'm sure most of you will have a positive response. How many of you have looked through a telescope? I guess I'll look at the chat and see a few of the responses. Just to see whether we are communicating. Perfect. So I set up the traveling telescope with my husband and partner, Daniel Owen, who's not here with me right now. And the reason we set it up was because the telescope has been around for more than 400 years, and yet many people have not had a chance to look through one. And many people, especially in Kenya and in Africa, and we wanted to change that. But before I met Daniel and before we set up the telescope, I just wanted to talk a little bit about my journey with the night sky. Well, I didn't grow up looking up at the sky. I grew up in Nairobi, and I cannot tell you how the sky was 40-something years ago when I was a child. 30 years ago, I'm now 44. But I do recall in primary school, given an assignment by my science teacher to look out for the plow, also known as the Big Dipper. And I didn't see it, but some of the students in the class saw it, and that bothered me, and I moved on. But in my 20s, when I was about 21, I joined a group of outreach people from the undergrad and grad students from the US and UK, and some from Africa, who had traveled across after an eclipse, a total solar eclipse, with the path of totality in Zambia and other countries. And they're traveling across teaching science. At that time, I did not know what they were doing, but I got a chance to look through a telescope. I got a chance to see Saturn, and I wanted to change that. I wanted to share what I had experienced with as many people, and especially school kids in Kenya, because I felt that had I experienced that as a young girl in school, I probably would have had a bigger view of the world. Now, fast forward, I got involved in astronomy outreach through an organization called Global Hands on Universe. And then fast forward in 2013, there was a total solar eclipse, and the path of totality was going through Turkana. And I, through some of the organizations I'm involved with, organized a trip to Turkana, which is in the northern part of Kenya. Now, for anyone who's been to Kenya or who lives in Kenya, Turkana is known for its beautiful dark skies, but it's also known for its remoteness and lack of access to facilities. And I thought it was a good opportunity to take friends and guests to Turkana to witness the eclipse. I hadn't been there before. But to also see how we could help the community. And through that trip, I had 5,000 safe solar glasses to distribute in schools. And through that trip, a guy from the UK called Chu also got in touch and wanted to join. And I ended up meeting Chu, and our lives changed. We realized we both had a passion for astronomy and a passion for sharing views through the telescope. And we set up the Traveling Telescope in 2014. Chu relocated to Kenya, and we've been doing this since then. So now I'll just share my slides and just give you a view of what we do. I hope you can see my slides.
Yeah, they look great.
So as Caroline said in my introduction, the Traveling Telescope is set to give views of the telescope. And as I said, because for all these years, we have not looked through a telescope, many of us. And we have two angles where we do this. Our passion comes through sharing astronomy with school kids. So we have the education angle, and we have visited to date about 500,000 Kenyan school children directly who have looked through our telescope. And this is a picture I really like. We went to Turkana, I think a year ago, 2 years ago, and went to a very remote community of kids who could not speak English or Kiswahili, which is a national language. And we shared the views of the telescope. I like this photo because this child and his friends are not looking through this expensive equipment, but they're looking at the night sky. And that's the thing. The telescope was a gateway to appreciating the dark skies we have in Kenya. And I'll talk about that later. So we are a company interested in promoting astronomy tools and concepts, and we do it in two angles. One is education, and I'll share a few more slides. And then one is in tourism or astrotourism. And we've received the Europlanet Award in 2020 for public outreach engagement. And this was very special because that was during COVID, and we had no way to reach to the public at that time. And we thought we'd have to change careers, but getting this recognition and a bit of money, I think, reminded us that there was something we were doing right. We've also been featured extensively on local and international media houses, and we are very grateful for that coverage. And we're the youth partners of Airbus Foundation and other organizations, and part of the Dark Sky Kenya chapter. So these are views of our engagement in schools. We go to schools and offer views through the telescope, and we do it as a nighttime activity. And I think, and we strongly think as a Traveling Telescope, that every child should at least have a lesson under the night sky at least once in their lifetime, with or without the equipment we have. You know, we have these beautiful dark skies, especially in remote parts of Kenya, as Carol talked about, and they're untapped. You know, we don't explore, we don't look at them, we don't wonder. And why we go to schools is really to give them an opportunity to think beyond their community, what they can do. But the sky and the night sky opens up all these possibilities that we don't think about. The picture with so many kids and a really tiny telescope is right at the beginning of our Traveling Telescope activities in 2014. We went to a school in the western part of Kenya, and we had a small telescope at that time, and we were amazed to see more than 1,000 students waiting to look through the telescope. And it was intimidating, it was exciting, it was so many emotions. Unfortunately, it rained, and so they didn't get to look through the telescope, but there was so much interest, and that was how we got our needs. We understood the needs of the school community especially. And then obviously we sometimes use a telescope during the day to just talk about optics and everything. In addition to that, we have a planetarium, and we have a mobile one, which we move around in schools. And we feel this is useful to talk about the night sky and to excite populations. We also go to public spaces, and we've set it up in some of the malls in Nairobi. And then just before the pandemic, we built the only fixed planetarium in Kenya. It's built out of bamboo. We wanted to demonstrate tools and ways that we could use sustainable buildings and ways that we can protect our planet. We do have shows 3 days in a week, twice a day, and we get a lot of people from Nairobi. And every time we get guests or schools, we talk about our night sky and how important it is. So this is mostly about what we do with the schools. And then, as I said, we have a partnership project with Airbus Foundation, which does robotics and just talking about the extra, the whole conversation about space exploration. It's not just the astronauts going to space, it's the engineers who build these rockets and the communicators and the programmers. And it's really a whole community of scientists and communicators, and demonstrating to our future generation of leaders that they too can be part of this space community. Now, I guess this is a topic that might be of more interest to you. So other than going to schools, we do partner with lodges and go to remote places in Kenya and offer nights, which we call star safaris, to their guests. We give them a guided tour of the night sky, talking about different things in the sky. And I wish I could get my science teacher today, because now I have a very good idea of the night sky. And now I understand perhaps why I wasn't able to see the constellation she had asked me to look for, because that was in the city. And you know, moving out from the city to dark and polluted skies is quite a revealing thing for me, but also for the number of people we reach out to, you know, just reminded that in Kenya especially, we have beautiful dark skies just outside the city. And every month we do a star safari for the expat community and Kenyans. And it's just an hour away from Nairobi. And we get so many families coming, and it's not too bad. Yes, there's light pollution, but we can still save this through the projects like Carol and many other people are involved with. I think communicating more and doing public events like what we do can help change our idea of development and protect the night sky. So we've partnered with a number of lodges, we've partnered with hotels, and we keep on telling them, because in some of the spaces we go to, most of the tourists who come to the country have probably come for the wildlife. And to protect our guests from the wildlife, we have to have bright lights, but we have to keep educating them on how best to light up the planet without really reducing or polluting the dark skies. The picture is not the picture with Chu and I and the gentleman who was the former cabinet secretary for tourism, Honorable Najib Balala, is not of a dark sky area, but we were invited by the Ministry of Tourism to talk about what we do, and we took advantage of that to take our telescope and show him what we could see out there. At that time, he was looking at the moon, but if you go to like the photo we have with, you know, the other tourists, you can see so much detail. Tourism for us is a way to give us access also to the really remote schools. Some of the lodges we visit are next to some of the most underserved communities. And this gives us an opportunity to visit these schools without a fee, sometimes to get support from the lodges, but this gives us an opportunity to give the younger generation a chance to appreciate the night sky, because they're the ones who have to take our planet to the next level. I really absolutely love this photograph of a traditional Maasai. That's one of the Kenyan communities, looking through the telescope in his traditional regalia. And at the background, you can see elephants. And we constantly remind our guests and kids and everyone that we can't have elephants or tomatoes or plants without our planet, and we can't have a planet without a host star. So we all have to live collectively and responsibly together to protect our unique planet. And I just love the darkness of this place. This is in the northern part of Kenya, where some of the best skies are. Just also to add, Kenya is right at the equator, and that means we get to see the whole of the sky, but also that most of the objects we look at when they're overhead are really, really crisp clear. And then this is another photo that I really like. We'd gone to a really remote school in southern part of Kenya, and we invited the elders to talk about the night sky as they knew, and they had a lot of stories about what they had. But this was in a school with about 400 school kids and their parents. This was before COVID, and their parents and their grandparents, and they were able to share these stories. Unfortunately, we did not manage to record, because imagine you have 2 or 3 telescopes with a huge crowd, and you're also trying to, at night, and you're also trying to manage the crowd and entertain them. But it was such a powerful way of, passing on stories from one generation to the next. Just a few more pictures of our moon. It's not our favorite for a night sky, but it's still really nice to look through a telescope and through our telescope. And Saturn, this is the planet that got me excited about astronomy, and through looking at the telescope, I am excited about dark skies. And every time I sit out and look at a dark sky when we are working, I live in Nairobi, but when we travel out, it's just, it's good for our mental health as well. It's just so freeing and relieving, and I don't know, reminding of how tiny we are. And then another photo of us doing what we do in a remote place. And I honestly think that it will be so powerful if we get as many young people to look through a telescope, and every child deserves that at least once in their lifetime. And this is us, the Traveling Telescope. You can reach us through the different networks. I will stop here, and just say thank you so much once more for inviting me to talk about what we do. And we're very excited that we're about to get to 10 years of our project, and we hope we can still work with other organizations and promote the dark sky in Kenya or any other place in the world. Thank you. Over to you, Carol.
Thank you very much, Susan. Thank you for that informative, and it's great to see all these awesome initiatives and things we've done towards that sky preservation and more education, especially to the young kids.